Welcome to the Montana Department of Labor and Industry Employment Standards Division course on tips, gratuities, and service charges. In this video, we will address the requirements of the Wage Payment Act and the differences of the Fair Labor Standards Act in order to help employers and employees understand tips, gratuities, service charges, and tip pooling requirements in Montana. Section 39-3-2016A, Montana Code Annotated, MCA, defines wages to include any money due an employee from the employer or employers, whether to be paid by the hour, day, week, semi-monthly, monthly, or yearly, and includes bonus, piecework, and all tips and gratuities that are covered by Section 3402K and service charges that are covered by Section 3401 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1954, as amended and applicable on January 1, 1983, received by employees for services rendered by them to patrons of premises or businesses licensed to provide food, beverage, or lodging. Essentially, Title 26 U.S. Code, Sections 3402K and 3401 of the Internal Revenue Code allows an employer to withhold typical payroll taxes for earned tips, gratuities, and service charges valuing more than $20 in any calendar month since they are considered a wage. Some employers decide to withhold taxes from tips, gratuities, and service charges, and or list the earnings on the pay stub while others do not. As such, any concerns with the reporting of these earnings or withholding of taxes must be handled by the Internal Revenue Services, IRS, and or Montana Department of Revenue. Administrative Rules of Montana 24-16-3022 defines tips, gratuities, and service charges. Tips are synonymous with gratuities in that it is the customer who chooses whether it is provided and determines its amount based upon recognition of the service performed. Tips and gratuities are the employees to keep regardless of whether the customer designates amounts to be added to their bills in the form of cash, check, gift card, or credit card. Service charges are different than tips and gratuities since they are usually an arbitrary charge added to the customer's bill by an employer in lieu of a tip. Service charges may also be called a setup fee, house fee, service fee, labor charge, etc., and may involve other factors to determine how much of the service charge is earned by the employee. Under Montana's wage laws, tips, gratuities, and service charges may not be utilized to make up any part of the employee's wage. The Fair Labor Standards Act, Fact Sheet 15, published by the U.S. Department of Labor, allows employers to take a tip credit towards minimum wage and overtime obligations. However, since Montana does not allow tip credit, an employee must receive at least the current minimum wage rate for all hours worked, including time and 1/2 for overtime hours, and receive their portion of earned tips, gratuities, or service charges in addition to their hourly wages. Tip pooling policy. An employer may impose a mandatory tip pooling policy and control an employee's tips, gratuities, and service charges, but only for the collection and distribution pursuant to Section 39-3-218 MCA. A tip pooling policy must be announced to employees, and it may include employees directly involved in providing customer service or other support service employees. There is no minimum or maximum contribution percentage on mandatory tip pools. However, employees may not be required to contribute to a tip pool more than the amount received in tips. An employer's owner or exempt salaried supervisors or managers may not participate in a tip pooling agreement. However, these individuals may keep tips they receive directly from customers based on the service directly provided by them. An employer that collects tips received by the employees to operate a mandatory tip pooling arrangement shall maintain and preserve payroll or other records evidencing tips received and distributed pursuant to the tip pool. Absent a tip pooling policy, service charges must be distributed equally among non-management employees involved in food preparation or service or a related service. Equal distribution must be among those workers who perform services during the particular shift or event where the service charge was earned and must be distributed on a pro rata basis. An employer that facilitates tip pooling by collecting and redistributing employees' tips must fully distribute any tips the employer collects no later than the regular payday for the work week in which the tips were collected. Where tips and service charges are included on a credit card for which the employer is charged a percentage on each sale, the employer may pay the employee the tip less that percentage. An employer may not take any deductions from an employee's wages for walkouts, breakage, or cash register shortages in accordance with the Attorney General Opinions, Volume 25, Number 11, and Volume 36, Number 17. Thank you for joining us for the Tips, Gratuities, and Service Charges presentation. For more information, please visit the Employment Standards Division website or contact us by telephone or email.